You've written two really splendid books about your life and all sorts of times. But when those of us who admired the two books came to the end of the second one, we went, well, where's volume 3? But I think volume 3 is imminent, as they say in the shipping forecast.
Imminent, yeah, it is. I finished it, and now we're just looking for a publisher. So it will be out somewhere. It's called, at the moment, it's called Stone Free. It was called Under the Influence, and both those titles are appropriate because it's a look 10 or a dozen years later at basically the same people, but even though the business has gone through a lot of changes, we all have, and so you didn't plan it, but you find yourself writing about the same people, whether it be impresarios, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, whomever, slightly different, because 12 years at this time of our lives, I'm sure for all of those of you who are roughly the same age as me or close, you know what I mean. If you've managed to sign on for another chapter, you know, a dozen years makes a lot of difference as to how you see, you know, events from earlier on, you know. And I also so I look at some of the same people, and I also look at all the impresarios who influenced me when I was growing up. Diaghilev, because I just thought he was a great manager, impresario. I mean, the Ballet Russe was more so to do, much more equivalent in terms of shock to do with what Malcolm did than the Rolling Stones, because the Rolling Stones were basically the same way as Anthony Perkins was an alternative to Elvis Presley. We were an alternative, as opposed to the thing, which was one of the, I mean, the whole Sex Pistols things was against a movement. We were not really against a movement because we came into life, the Beatles as well, as a result of the pill. The birth pill was the first time that late Britain had disposable income. And it was slow because there's really like 3 different versions of the 60s. One of them began in 55, 56. The next one began in sort of 62, and the next one began in 68. I remember at least 2.5 of them, you know, but, you know.
For you, you were underage, wanting to manage this band you'd found, the Rolling Stones, and you had to have somebody else on board before you were able to do that legally, and that's where your, at the time, co-manager, Eric Easton, came in.
No, it wasn't for that reason. The band needed to be able to work, and Eric Easton was an agent. And I, thanks to the kindness of a gentleman who worked at the Melody Maker, was renting an office for £4 a week, and no long-distance calls, Andy. You know, well, you didn't make long-distance calls then. I mean, the reason that, you know, I've had an incredible life, but the first 4 months of 1963, one way or the other, I represented the Beatles, Bob Dylan, and the Rolling Stones. And that's pretty wonderful. I'm pleased to say the Bob Dylan that I met was exactly the same one, whomever he is, that you witness today. And I got the job doing the PR for the Beatles. Basically, I hustled Brian Epstein at a television show, but I got the job because people didn't make long-distance phone calls then, except maybe to announce a death. I think even births got letters. And you didn't call Liverpool to London for something as frivolous as a pop group. So I did the publicity from London for Please Please Me and From Me to You. That would have been like February and March. And we were all very young. I recently did a Beatles festival in Secaucus, New Jersey. And appearing on it, because now as it's been going 35 years, man, you know, if you own a Beatles record, they'll have you on it. You know, I mean, the links are very tenuous, you know. And Chris Montez was there. And I had done publicity for Chris Montez in those first couple of months of '63 as well. And he kept himself. He was amazing, right? But I was 19 when I was doing the press on that tour. He was 17 and he had a #1 record all over the world. So, we did get that early start that the suppressive form of education tries and keeps some of your young uns away. Get them in the street, working, Because fashion in England was a pop business before we had pop music. Quite, Vidal Sassoon, David Bailey, they were working abroad, which English music, apart from the marginal freaks like, who knows Jackie Dennis? Right? Well, he was great, right? I mean, he had, La-Di-Da was huge, and Laurie London and Acker Bilk and the Tornadoes are the only kind of people who got accepted for 3.5 minutes in America. I mean, Cliff Richard certainly scampered home fast. He didn't like the lack of adulation. And it took and until the Beatles, we basically just had an alternative to a regular job. Oh, this is nice. This is fun. And then, of course, when the Beatles did go to America, it turned into a serious job.
A lot of your work as a producer is still lying in vaults in different places, and some things have taken a very long time to come out. The Del Shannon album I'm especially fond of took about 20 years. Another one with Billy Nichols that's garnered quite a following over the last 10 years took over 30 years, and I wonder how much more there is yet to surface.
Well, I don't know. I mean, you can't plan those things. It's the same with another artist, Vashti. I think we sold 80 copies of her in 1965, and she disappeared for 35 years, and now has been welcomed back by people who never welcomed her before. So it's not even a comeback. Del Shannon was kind of plaintive in that he was a lovely man to record. Billy Nichols, as you know, wrote some of the songs for him, but unfortunately, when we recorded it in the Summer of Love, and by the time he went home, back to America, the record company had discovered the Summer of Love. They all had Beatles haircuts. The people working in the offices, Beats and everything, and they'd signed Canned Heat, and they weren't interested in Del Shannon. So that's why that record didn't come out.
Thinking about Immediate and your productions and all the other things that you did, there's some footage of you in, I think it's Peter Whitehead's Tonight Let's All Make Love in London, where you're sitting in the back of the Phantom V and saying, I'm in this for the reason for making money. Right. But all the things that you did, the adventure seemed, but the adventure seemed much more important than the money. And also, I think all the music fans should thank you eternally for taking out the full-page advert to Nick Cilla Black's version of You've Lost That Loving Feeling. I mean, that was hardly the gesture of a man who's only in it for the money. There seemed to be much more love of the adventure.
No, I agree. I mean, I was shy and snotty, and if you put a camera in front of me, I just told fibs, I mean, it's as simple as that. If you're not born to perform, you'll probably say something stupid when they put a camera on you.
Andrew, bringing it back to the music, the Poets, although they didn't sell at the time to any degree.
Yes, they did. The first
they had a top 50 hit, didn't they?
That number 18 is selling.
Oh, I thought it was about number 49 or something.
No, dear, 18.
Which chart were you reading?
Huh?
Which chart were you reading?
2 out of 3.
Okay. And that, as the song says, ain't bad. They carry quite a resonance down a long time. For listeners now, I think, the Poets, the far outweighs the success that they had in the 60s. And I think it's one of those things that it seems to come back to you. The things that you did that weren't the big hitters have a certain longevity.
Well, thank you. I mean, but it's the moment of work that counts. You have no idea whether, 1, you're going to be able to finish it, 2, it's going to be accepted, 3, we've learned with lots of other things. I mean, the records that come back and become big again because they're in commercials, or, reasonable music, I won't call it great music, but reasonable music breaks the time barrier. And it's just another little benefit of having done what we all did at the time, to be, enjoyed now.
I think what we should call for now is A round of applause for Andrew Loog Oldham.